and so on and so forth. Okay. Incidentally, and I'm sure many of you are professionals and have done project management and so on. And if you are in project management space, you know that there's something called PMBOK, right? Body of knowledge. Oddly enough, the reason, at least anecdotally, and I remember one study as well, the vast majority of projects fail not for technical reasons, but because of people reasons. And that, if you drill down further, is because the change, the project is actually introducing change which has not been accepted by the recipients well. All right, so there are stalling techniques and so on and so forth. So even the PMBOK talks about the need for that, but ultimately nobody does anything. If I look at most IT implementations and any other implementation, at least 80% of them are usually delayed because the people angle of it is not fully understood, and it is felt that if there is any people angle to be looked at, well, anyone can do it, and that's not true. Change management is a sophisticated, activity. All right, and here is what people talk. But before I do that, I want to show you one very interesting slide and give you a personal example of that. Give me a moment. I'm just leafing through this. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Coming up soon. Okay. In case you can't see this, I'll just share a different slide with you. One moment. Sorry, guys. Let me share. Okay. Here we are. I want to show you this slide. Okay. This is a very simple slide. Many of you may even have seen it before, but it says a lot in very little. It says a lot in very little. And this particular thing is showing how we actually go through the whole change cycle for any kind of change. Guys, please excuse me. One of my 6 dogs is making a racket. 1 second. Hey, don't go here.
This is so normal for me as well.
Sorry, guys. Very sorry.
No problem at all.
There's always someone who has something to say. Okay. Okay. So this is the change curve, and the way to maybe some of you know about it, but I'll assume that maybe you haven't heard about it. But this is pretty much how we, at a personal level, absorb change. Okay. And a simple example would be that, we're talking about, let's say, the death of a parent. And all of us in this group, I'm assuming, at least has lost someone. If not a parent, then at least someone, very, very close. Like I've lost my parents, right? And many others. It may be worse, with losing a child or a spouse or something, right? So this is your classic change curve. And the first step of this is that, there's an unwillingness to accept that it has happened. Right? Okay. I can't believe, for example, that, my parent died, right? It's impossible. She was just fine yesterday. She was having this, she was talking about this, she was looking at the table, and now look at what the hell's going on. So the first step is denial, that this event could not be possible. The second step is of anger, where we protest and we say that, how could this happen? And then we're angry with everybody else in the system. That why is this happening? And for the doctor who wasn't in time, she didn't have a medicine on time, or whatever the case is. So we go through a stage of emotional response of anger. The third and fourth step is basically of a slow, gradual acceptance of this massive change. And frankly, in these times, from a professional point of view, also, either some of you or people have also possibly lost jobs or have had income affected by all the stuff that's going on, right? The COVID matter. So that whole thing is a very shocking 3 or 4 months that all of us have been through. And many of us have not been able to accept that, it's possible for the entire, thing to collapse like a pile of bricks. So we will go through it. How can it be possible that yesterday I was being promoted to something, today I don't have a job? Then there's a whole lot of anger and you start doing a lot of finger pointing. And now we are all adapting to this new reality. Now you see everyone throwing out webinars, everyone's working from home, is all fine, everyone's quite okay with it. Previously, working from home was not a very cool thing to do. But now I think everybody has figured out, okay, well, that's life. So the change curve is simply a simple way of helping you to understand that any change, whether to yourself or to someone that you will be impacting, they will go through this curve. Now the question is, how long is this curve? Or rather, how much of time will it take to go from stage 1 to stage 4 or 5 or 6 as the case may be? So that is really the thing. For certain kinds of small changes, relatively, easy changes. For example, maybe a new kind of ID card. Somebody says that, from within a week's time, you guys will have to get a new card with a new chip. That's not a big deal, a bit of a nuisance. You have to go to the admin department or you have to call somebody. It's fine. But there could be larger changes. Examples in the professional life could be when you're getting absorbed, in another company, two companies merge, or like I said, you may have a job loss, or you may be reassigned in a different place. Now, or else you start with a new IT system. I was just talking to somebody just before this call, and that lady is in charge of SAP implementations. So she was talking about this, that getting people to accept a new product and getting rid of something they are used to is not something that easy. Okay, so that for them, the curve is going to be much, much longer, right? From refusing to cooperate. And I'll give you an example from my own experience. Somewhere around 92 or 93, when I was in the US, and I was working for a Japanese company called NEC. And the story there was that, you'd always have lifetime employment in a Japanese company, from cradle to grave, all these great stories were happening. But then all of a sudden, our company started doing quite badly. It was in the telecom area, and we were facing some challenges. At that point, what happened was that there were rumors going around that we may have a layoff. So we were not prepared to believe it. Okay. Then we had some consultants with suits and boots coming in, and then they started, administering questionnaires to us and so on. And we were not willing, since we weren't willing to do this, we started reacting in a bad way. We were not cooperating with them. We would give them wrong data, or we wouldn't show up for meetings and so on and so forth. Anyway, it was a very ugly kind of a situation. Again, remember, change management as a subject was not known for a very long time. So finally, we had the situation where people were willing to, we accepted this new reality after the layoff. 50% of us lost jobs. Fortunately, unfortunately, I did not. But oddly enough, the ones who were left behind had a greater feeling of guilt. That what the heck, how come we didn't do the jobs? The guys who were smarter than us, they lost their jobs, so all that. So going through any kind of change at a personal or professional level is really quite a challenge. Okay, but I want to stop here for 1 second to make sure that, am I being clear? Is there something, which I have not touched yet, or you would like to, pitch in with your own observations or comments? I'd be very, very interested. Go ahead, please, if anyone has anything you'd like to say. Anyone? Om Prakash, anything you'd like to say? Are you all on mute, or have you fallen asleep?
No, we have not fallen asleep, but I mean, this is very interesting stuff. So we just
okay, we're just absorbing it. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, they probably, the stigma in the society today.
Yeah.
Where people are stigmatized. You lost a job. But other times, people would shy away. But what I see today is people are openly accepting and are able to speak about it. That's a very positive change. What I see, that people are saying that, okay, I lost my job.
Yeah.
It's a very unusual situation. So people are coming out, and people are of course, the situation is bad, and getting a job is good and difficult. But the change that I see is, earlier people used to feel that, how do I go and tell I was in such a good job, and and now I lost it. I don't know how to go and approach for a new job, feeling shy. So right now I feel is people are accepting, and that's the change which has come.
Well, that's fantastic. I think, as I said initially, when all this started happening, you have to work from home, you can't do this. We didn't like it. Now I think all of you see that we have somehow adjusted. Now, I'm noticing if somebody is not wearing a mask, I notice the guy is not wearing a mask. So previously, if someone was wearing a mask, you'd be surprised. Now you're worried about the type of mask, and now you probably need branded masks, God knows what the heck, or filters and so on. So yeah, this is happening. And in fact, this also tells me one thing, is that we are not taught how to absorb change. So Kaushik, that's a great point you make. We are, and if you take KV, all of us, we are all, I would say, we have middle class backgrounds by and large. I think I'm not wrong, right? Most of us have that thing, and for us, success is defined in certain ways. Whether we agree or not, it's defined. Like, for example, I did my engineering. Was I cut out for engineering or not? I don't know. But we all of us, like cattle, we were going in a certain direction. We really didn't have any idea of these things. So actually, we were groomed for success. Now, there was a case, I think, of some senior vice president in California, and his entire family. He killed himself and killed his entire family because he lost his job. Now, if you look at his background, it was only success. Gold medalist here, somewhere else, and so on. but he was never prepared for a possibility that a time will come when he may lose his job. So that is the thing. So therefore, it makes it even more clear that all of us as adults and professionals, we really need to be extremely cognizant that we need to understand that change is an important concept. It's not an abstract philosophical thing. It happens on us at a personal level, and affects a lot of people that we're dealing with in our personal lives as well as professional. So as long as you can anticipate, like for example, if somebody says that you won't be going to school anymore or whatever, or else we can't afford to send you for this tuition because our income is gone. I'm talking about kids, for example. You can be sure that they will go through this. Anyone will go through this, because you're introducing a change that they're not ready to accept. Nobody wants change, okay? But it takes time to accept. So let me continue with that. So this is, first of all, fundamentally the change curve, which is the foundation of all subsequent, what should I say, frameworks, and there are many frameworks of how to understand and implement change and all that stuff. Very briefly, there is a very popular, model. I suppose you can see this. It's called the ADKAR model. Okay. So this is a much more elaborate description of how change actually affects an individual, whether it's professional or even personal. But I will talk about it professionally for a minute, because you're all from different personal backgrounds, and I will not be able to directly hit a particular point. But if you are responsible for something at an organization, for rolling out something, and what could be rolling out? You could be rolling out a new HR policy. You could be rolling out a new what should I say, security policy, or a new IT system, and so on. Then you will definitely, somebody in charge must be equipped with change management skills, and they must map the ADKAR model through this whole change. I'll just tell you about very briefly. It's a thick sized books are written on this. I don't want to get into that, but basically it's a very nice framework, a little formal, but doesn't matter. At least you know that if I want to introduce a change, I need to work it out from an ADKAR perspective. Okay, so in this you need 4 things. Okay, first of all, I'll start with, what is it that you ultimately want? What is that end result? You are introducing change, great, but what is that change going to result in? And I'll give you a simple example. We recently did and since I do a lot of change management workshops with companies, right? We did a program with a company in Hyderabad called Vision 2023. It was okay. So they said we are currently a $6 million company. We want to be $100 million company by 2023. That's about 3 or 4 years away. So that was a very clear to be state. This is the end result. This is what we want. Okay. So that's the first thing. You need to be very clear. The second is you need very strong leaders. And strong leaders, I think you instinctively understand, it must be people who are not there to be popular. At the same time, they must have, they know exactly what it is, and they can bulldoze a path ahead from you if that's required. Because sometimes people are going to resist. If you are a person who's very interested in your personal popularity, then you will not be effective as a strong leader, because leadership also involves taking certain unpopular decisions. Right? That's the second. Third is you have to have tools for implementation of change. You just don't announce change, right? If you say that Vision 2023, I'm going to be a $100 million company, then you need a series of workshops. You need certain kind of training programs. You may need to buy another company. You may need so many different kinds of workshop facilitation, for example, is an important tool. And you need a program management office where, you run through and see how this implementation is going, and so on and so forth. Finally, communication is key. It has to be strong, precise, totally clear communication. That this is what we want, this is what's going to happen next, this is what's going to happen tomorrow, etc., etc. I hope this is clear. So when you are assuming for a minute, let's say Manoj or Brinda or anyone else on this group is going to be implementing at the workspace, I'm just assuming work for now. This is also clear. Now, you need to have these 4 things at the basic. This is how I'm going to be rolling out change. Now you may say, does this have to happen in the personal life as well? And I would say yes, right? What is it that we want? Okay, and just to be a little on the funny side, Kaushik was talking about personal change. You were very polite to discuss things about jobs, but we are all adults. In our lifetime, we have seen that sometimes change can be as drastic as a change of family circumstances. There could be a divorce, there could be something else. So all this change is going to be requiring clarity. If I'm not talking about divorce necessarily, but I'm saying There could be so many kinds of things, like you want to move to a new job, move to a new city, right? And then your education of your children. Everything actually involves these things. For example, when you talk about strong leaders, as parents, sometimes you have to be strong if you want your kid to do a little well. Some people say, no, let the child do whatever they want. That's also lovely. But sometimes there are times when you have to be strong. So bottom line, a to-be state, strong leadership, tools and communication are necessary to roll out change. Okay, so quickly again, this is the ADKAR model. Okay, the first thing you do is make people aware that there is a need for change. Okay, so you just don't say, guys, we need to change. Somebody say, why? What's the need? Things are going perfectly fine. Why would I want to do that? I also want to make a point that change management as a subject is fairly new. Okay, in terms of, and when you go through this, you'll say, what's the big deal? It's all pretty obvious stuff. But actually, it's not obvious. Surprisingly enough, the simplest things are not obvious to people. And I'd like to give you an example here, starting from the awareness going forward. Approximately again, 93, I was in Dallas at Deloitte and Touche. I used to work for Deloitte in the US. And we were responsible for a change management initiative at a company called Bell South in Alabama. Okay. So for about 6 months, I was going there every single week. I would go on Monday, come back on Friday for 6 months. Okay, I got a lot of frequent flyer miles. What was happening over there was that they Bell South had a billing system. For some of you who don't know what a billing system is, like when you have Vodafone, Airtel, or whatever the case may be, when you they have to bill you, right? The company has to bill you based on your plan, based on your usage, etc. They have to generate bills. Bills have to be printed correctly and sent across to you guys. Guys, can you please mute your mic? There's some background traffic sound coming. Okay, if a couple of you can mute it, it'll be nice. Okay, 1 second. I have to mute something here as well. Okay, all right. So what happened then was that there was a billing system going on for 30 years on an IBM system. So there was an IBM billing system which was going on in the background. Every month without fail, it would generate these bills regularly on time and dispatch it, and money would be collected. So people had a complete career bound to this billing system. All right. So everybody was using this billing system, and they had built their entire careers at Bell South. One fine day, somebody decided that this is an old-fashioned billing system. We need to move to an Oracle-based IT system. Please excuse me if it's a bit IT-centric, but just to make a point, you may not be from an IT background, but hopefully you will draw parallels in your own professional space. But I think you understand, sometimes you make radical changes in manufacturing or at a hospital or whatever the case is. So now things are moving very well, but the people at the top see that this is not good enough. We need to make a change. So in this particular case, we were supposed to go and roll out the new Oracle system, but we met resistance immediately from the staff. So, so-and-so, John, so-and-so, or Peter, so-and-so would say that, I've been here for 30 years and there's nothing wrong with the system. There are no complaints. We are absolutely fine. So why the hell do we need this change? So this tells you that people must first communicate and explain why there is a need for change. Okay, that's the first thing. That's what the first thing of awareness is. Now, obviously, if you go through that curve, people are going to resist. So now you have to transform the resistance, the negative energy, into a positive energy, which is called the desire. Now you want them to welcome the change, right? And you might do it in so many ways. You may have posters, you may congratulate them, you roll out some HR, things for people who are signing up for the course, but basically create that internal energy to learn new ways of doing work, right? And it's possible at every age. This is possible. Let me tell you, don't say that, once you're in your 50s, it's all over. Not at all the case. You can have extremely high energetic 60, 70, 80-year-old people, and you can have extremely low energy 21-year-old people. So it's got nothing to do with it. So the desire to learn has to be pushed by you into these people so that they start accepting change. Now, once the desire comes, okay, I want to change. I want to, learn how to run this new billing system. The question is how? That's where you provide the knowledge. You send them to class, you teach them about Oracle, you tell them about new laws, regulations, etc. Now they feel a bit more confident. Yeah, okay, now I think I'm kind of getting what's happening. All right. Now you start showing them the abilities to implement changes. Okay, so roll it out on certain projects, give them a chance to implement the skills and so on and so forth. And then sustain this change through a reward and recognition method. So that is one example. Let me quickly switch over into a personal space quickly. But first of all, let me just check with you. Again, I'm asking Manoj or Brinda, anybody else here. I'm just seeing some of your names. I'm not ignoring any of you. But if any of you would like to comment or ask me a question about this very interesting model, I'd be happy to answer.
No, this is Manoj here. It's going fantastic.
Okay.
And really, you're putting it in a very beautiful manner for us
Okay.
to and making it very easy. Thanks.
That's very kind of you. Thank you, Manoj.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, so this is Om. I'm so sorry. I was not there in the first half, although
No
I was
problem.
there. I was there on Zoom as a to connect the session.
Okay.
I just logged in now. I
No
do have a
problem.
question.
Please.
Sometimes what happens is organizations force fit change because of the VUCA situation they are in.
Yeah.
And there's no choice, but individuals sometimes need not move at the same pace. So
Right.
how do you suggest somebody handles something like that?
No. So the first thing, your point is so precise and clear that actually this is not unique to what we're talking about. This is largely the case with everybody else, right? So I believe in change. I believe all of you should change, but I'm perfect. I don't need to change. That is usually that's the first step. It is a problem that we ourselves are unwilling to go through it. Second problem is your priority is different from my priority, right? Your priority is you want to roll out the system right away, whatever the thing, the new initiative is. You have to do it now, guys. We have to do this. Somebody else's priority is to file some regulatory, reports with the government in the next 7 days. He doesn't have time for your nonsense. Okay, so I'm afraid I don't have a clear answer for you. But what I can tell you for sure is, at least once you understand that change management is a formal, decent subject, and I will tell you more. It'll probably become clear. Then you'll be able to approach these challenges in a little more slightly scientific way, right? In the sense, for example, making that other person aware of the need for this change. Why is this VUCA initiative really necessary? So the assumption is many times we think that the people at lower levels are not mentally mature enough or knowledgeable enough to understand what the heck this is about. So we just give them diktats. You have to do this, but that's not true. People are quite intelligent, and if you tell them and communicate with them properly, you can make them accept anything. However, there's one caveat. Every group also has a normal curve. Okay, what is the normal curve? It is of people, one, who are very enthusiastic about change. Some of them a little less enthusiastic, but they will do it. Some of them have no opinion. Okay, if you push them, they'll go ahead. Some of them are always complaining and grumbling. A little bit of force, they'll do it. Then there'll finally be 5 or 6% of people who are not going to accept change at all. You got to figure out what to do with them. Either get rid of them or, I don't know, do whatever it is. But that is just the nature of them, because they are fundamentally negative people and they will not accept change no matter what it is. In fact, they will have very sophisticated reasons why it's not necessary. And sometimes you even believe them. So I'll come to this, but thanks for that little deviation. It is important. So number one, as I said, please be aware that there is something called a simple change curve that everyone has to go through. Number one. Number two, you must have an ammunition. Be prepared for that ammunition of what is necessary to roll out change. Again, whether it's professional or personal, it comes to the same thing. Third, we're talking about the ADKAR model, which is very, very interesting. Now, let me ask a question, and I do not want Soma to respond. I want anybody else to respond. Are any of you interested in yoga? Do you practice yoga? Anyone?
Like few postures, like Sarvangasana I do.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's say, for example, many of you have this thing about one day I'm going to do yoga. One day will come. Okay, I'm going to get serious about yoga, man, because I know I've read a lot of stuff. I've seen some guys twisting and turning. It's very, very good. Okay, but I mean, I'm a yoga enthusiast, so this example makes sense to me. Now, you must understand that yoga or music or art or anything else that you're going to do is also a change in your normal rhythm. Yeah, you have a normal life. You wake up and do this and do that, and then you go to the office and then shout at people, come back in a bad mood, yell at your family, and then fall asleep, whatever. Now suddenly they've got the yoga bug in you. There's a bug introduced in you guys, and then you have to, I'm going to do yoga. Okay, how did that happen? Maybe somebody was made you aware that your health is not looking good, boss. You say you're 35, but you look 55. So things have to change. So suddenly someone made you aware that if you don't take care of your health, guys, and do something about it today, not tomorrow, then you are going to get into trouble. So first step from a yoga perspective is give them the reasons why they should yoga. Now we are talking, of course, only of hatha yoga. There are, of course, 7 more types of yoga. But for this discussion, let's assume we're talking about the physical side, the spiritual and all that. Never mind that. So the first thing we're talking about is hatha yoga. I need to change. I need to learn some yoga and look after myself first. After all, who will look after me, right? Now the question is, how do I this desire? I have to do something about it. You know what? I think I need to go and do something about it. Maybe I'll find a teacher. Maybe I'll download an app. Maybe I'll look at some YouTube videos and start getting enthusiastic. Okay. Maybe you might even go to the local store and buy a yoga mat. Okay. Slowly those things are happening. Okay. Then, the whole knowledge of this is how I need to do. Today, I will from now on, from 5:55 to 6:55 every day, I'm going to spend 1 hour on my mat and slowly learn. Or maybe I'll go to a teacher. Maybe a teacher can come and teach me. I have enough money, I can do that. Or I'll go to a class, whatever. So now we are humbling ourselves and willing to learn this path. Slowly over a period of time, you will start noticing, that thing that you wanted to do. Somebody mentioned Sarvangasana, or maybe you can take Halasana, or even the Shirshasana, or some other asana, right? You always wanted to do that. For example, I can do pretty much everything except one important thing called Mayurasana. I'm not able to do Mayurasana. That's my great desire that I have. All right. So I'm learning. Years are passing. I'm not able to do it. But still, I will learn one day. Okay. But other kinds of things I'm going to start implementing. Finally, I'm going to do reinforcement. I'll go to other additional advanced yoga classes. I'll go to S. Vyasa University, pick up a diploma, etc., etc. Bottom line is, the reinforcement part is that the journey for yoga, for making yoga a part of your habit, is 21 days. I think you're aware of this, right? Anything that you want to do, you have to follow through for 21 days. And it will certainly happen over a period of time. This also implicitly tells you that the change curve is happening in a different way, right? For example, the anger part. The doctor tells you, you have a great life, Mr. Sharma, but I'm sorry to inform you, your BP is really high. And you'll be very angry, and you'll say, it's impossible. My wife or I cook with low fat oil and I don't have masala. But the reality is, sorry, obviously not, right? You're overweight and you have these problems. So now, then you start accepting and then start doing things. I hope I'm clear. I'm trying to draw parallels from professional as well as personal changes that need to be rolled out. Karthik, do you have a question for me? Or Noor? Or Konka? Bimesh? Any one of you?
No, Vasudev. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let me know. Throw me a question anytime. I know I talk very fast. I'm really sorry about that. Okay. So bottom line is, somewhere along the way, if you have to create a bunch of change management professionals. The problem, of course, is that change management as a discipline is not, people are not aware of it, and they don't respect it much. They think it's some soft people thing. People, oh, I can do it. I'm very good at people. Haven't you heard that? Maybe you yourself are guilty of this. People will say, I really understand people very well. I have a sixth sense. I have an unbelievable knack. Well, that's not true, because change management is a formal subject and you have to learn it the formal way. Let me give you one example. When I was at Wipro Consulting Services, we were rolling out one large, finance ERP at McDonald's, Saudi Arabia in Riyadh. It was a long 1-year project. Okay. So after we won the project, we were trying to roll out this whole thing. And we met such unbelievable resistance from people. It is not funny. We tried our best to roll it out properly. But even before we came to that, when we put the proposal and we said, this is the nature of what we're going to do, this is how long it will take, this is how much it's going to cost you. Okay. And in the project plan, at the bottom, we had two change management experts along the entire Gantt chart. If you understand what a Gantt chart is, right? The project plan. So from the day 1 to day 180, we had 2 professionals who were going to be handling change management. So the CEO said, Mr. Murthy, what is this? I said, look, sir, we know that the people are going to resist of this experience, and this investment is an absolute must. If we don't have these guys, then we are not sure if we'll be able to do the right things with your employees and they'll accept this system fast enough. He said, all that is all fine. We are not going to pay for it. This is something you must automatically do. It's assumed that's going to happen. So we were not able to bring in professionals, and so software engineers or somebody looking clever was made the change management guy. It never works like that. It doesn't work like that. So basically, if you're not able to convince a client to pay for change management, you can take it for granted that that project is going to get delayed for sure, because people are going to resist. Their priority is not the same as priority. They will not show up for meeting. They will not do things the way you want them to do. And then projects keep delaying and costs keep escalating. Okay, so just as an example that this is what's going to happen, the change management. So now if you are thinking this is interesting, you need to absorb, not today, go and read up about the ADKAR model, get yourself certified in change management. Then you have the tools, frameworks, etc. required. So quickly, I'm going through this model. I'm not getting into details. This explains what is awareness, right? Next is the desire. How do you convince a passive or negative person to support the change? That's going to be critically important, right? The third, after desire comes knowledge. What are the skills and behaviors required to change during the process? Okay, I'm going to give you a very interesting example in just a moment. Okay, then finally we have the ability. Once you have absorbed the skills, it's like getting a degree, but then you have to actually apply those skills and you understand what actually works and what doesn't work, right? So people need to know that these are the kinds of challenges we'll have. Finally, we have reinforcement, like rewards and recognitions and those kinds of things. So this is the ADKAR model, which you all have to absorb so that you're clear as to how to implement change. Of course, I mean, I'm not saying that in your own house you should have a chart of the ADKAR model, not at all. But understanding human behavior is implicit in change management. And the ADKAR model does a pretty decent job in understanding how to take a person gradually through change. Okay, so this is what it is. The ADKAR is the building blocks for successful change. So let me now the question here is, okay, I got it. Now what do I do? Now here I'm going to give you a tool in the interest of time. And by the way, I'm sure if somebody is going to remind me if I'm going over time or I'm on time. Om Prakash or Tilotama, am I doing fine time wise? They want to.
Absolutely, no, I'm absolutely fine. I think I let Tilu is hosting, so I'll let her decide how you want to manage. But so far, so good.
Okay, so far so good. All right. Okay. So here we are once again. We talked about all these, right? Training, coaching, communication, sponsorship, all these kinds of things you're going to learn. And once you have all this, you can take the organization through ADKAR. Okay. If you ask me, many companies are going through it right now as we speak. One is scaling down operations, then getting used to this whole reality of everybody is working from home. People don't have any kind of control. Excuse me. People don't seem to have any control over each other. And if you're a control freak, you kind of lose it because you can't go up to somebody and shout at them. You can't do all those things. What do you do? Well, that's the new reality. That's life now. And will we ever go back to the previous state of work? I don't know. I think your guess is as good as mine. I really don't know. I have my doubts that people will ever be comfortable going back to offices, and the normal way of working. I don't know. Let's find out. Time will tell. All right. Now, let me quickly, so this is what happens in an assessment. Okay. This is how you quickly assess. How are we doing on awareness? How are we doing on desire? Do people know stuff? Okay. Are they able to actually implement their knowledge? And have you made sure that these skills are reinforced? So this is an assessment model before you start a project. However, I'm going to go ahead now to something very, very interesting. Here we go. Okay. And this I'm going to call the hard side of change management. Excuse me. Here we are. Please absorb this because this is very, very interesting and important. Okay. Why I'm so enthusiastic about it is because this is a predictive model. Okay. What do I mean by predictive model? It's saying, and I'm going to take an example, and I'm just going to use Sumati as an example. Okay, I don't know you, Sumati. Don't mind if I just use your name. So Sumati is now thinking of rolling out a massive change management, a change in the organization wherever she works. She's planning to change something drastically. Maybe it's going to be the whole set of HR policies are being revamped. I don't know, something she's planning to do. Now the DICE model is a predictive model. It will tell Sumati whether or not her change management initiative has a chance of success or not. Okay, how? I'll explain. So D stands for the duration between the two milestones in the entire change management initiative. We are going to be making this change from state A to state B, the new state of which is B. There are all these things that need to be done. So how many milestones do we have? I think those of you with the knowledge of project management know what I'm talking about, right? So D is that. Integrity is the ability of the team to execute. By the way, folks, there's some background noise coming. Can some of you mute your mics? Good music. Shall we listen to that instead? Yeah. All right. Okay. Integrity here, the I in DICE refers to the ability of the team to execute. So, for example, if you're taking a bunch of, let's say somebody in the shop floor in a manufacturing unit, tomorrow you say, guys, from now on, you guys will have to write software. Is it possible? Obviously not. They don't have the skills required. So the ability of the team to execute is nothing. There's no ability at all. Then we have two kinds of commitments. One is the sponsors. This means the senior people who want this change to happen. How committed are they? Are they simply going to make an announcement and back and then leave it? Or are they going to come back, check from time to time, are things happening as planned? And C2 refers to those who are impacted by the change. Okay, are those guys ready? Have they been told how they're going to maybe doing their new work from now on? Finally, the effort. If I already have a 40 or 45 hour week, and you're asking me for another 20 hours per week to implement this new change, I'm not going to cooperate with you, right? So effort is referring to that. How much of extra effort? So obviously, the lower the amount of effort required from me as a person, the more likely I will cooperate, because you're only asking me for 1 hour a week. I can do that. It's not a problem. So what you do in this is you add up these things. The scores are between 1 and 4. Okay. And if the duration, for example, let's say the integrity of the team, we talked about it. If the ability of the team to execute the change is very high, then you have to give them 1 point. If the ability is very low, you give it 4. Okay. If the effort is less, you give them 1 point. If the effort is high, like 20% more effort or 30% more, you get 4. If the commitment of the sponsors is very high, then you say 1. If the commitment of those impacted is very low, you give them 4. Am I clear? Right? When you add up these numbers, you will get a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 28. This is an empirical, interesting model from Boston Consulting Group. All right.
Sorry, I didn't understand why. For example, if the ability of the team to execute is higher, why do you give them a lower score?
Yeah. So this model works the other way around. Like whatever is high, you give them low marks. That's just the way the model has been put up. Okay, so if for example, if the duration between the 2 miles is very low, which is good, you give it 1. If the ability of the team is high, you give it 1. If the commitment is high, you give it 1. Yeah. The commitment of those impacted is high. Effort required is very low, minimal, then 1. But if it's moving the other direction, so in other words, if the integrity, if we're saying they don't have the ability, you give them 4. If you go to the last line, you'll see they just reverse this model. You can play with it and transform it. But I'm just repeating to you what the Boston Consulting Model framework is. If the number of points is 13 or less than 13, the probability that you will actually be able to get this change management initiative to make it successful is going to be high. It will actually work. But if it becomes 13 to 20, then you're going to have to fiddle a little bit. There's something is wrong. Maybe you need to train your people more. Maybe your sponsors are not showing enough commitment. Right? They made the first grand announcement and then they ran away. They never came back. So maybe the commitment is low. Now the effort seems to be a little on the higher side. It's about 2 or 3 or 4. People may not cooperate. So that score has moved from 13, 14, 15, 16 to about 20. We need to do something about it. If it is more than 20 and goes to 28, then this thing is not going to work right now. Okay. So this is just a very simple empirical model and gives a quick, back of the envelope kind of a calculation that whatever I'm trying to do, is it going to be successful, right? Because we're looking at these 4 important dimensions: the project plan, the ability of the team, the commitment of everybody concerned, of the ecosystem, and the amount of effort. Now, like I said, it's counterintuitive. You don't want too much effort. If the effort involved in implementing this change is too high, that means it's likely to be changed, likely to fail, because people have other things to do. They're not going to be cooperating and spending all their time on your thing. So to answer your question, whoever asked the question, they've just done the assignment of points in this way. That's all. There's no other great intellectual reason for this. Any question about this interesting model? Any thoughts, suggestions? Kaushik? Okay. So here's an example of this is an example of what we're doing here. Same thing. And maybe while you're doing this, you can look at something that you're implementing at work or even at home, for example, right? How do we do all these things? Okay. Just take a look. This is giving an example of what's happening in the DICE formula. And this will just tell you quickly, will my change management initiative work or not? Will I be able to roll out the new software upgrade easily? Will everybody accept it? Will I be able to roll out the new work from home kind of policy? Is that okay? Will it work? Or something else? One of the critical things that we have seen this being used at Wipro was, of course, I was not part of the team, so my information is second-hand. Let me be fair. But as you know, these very large companies, oftentimes they merge or acquire other companies, right? So Wipro will acquire XYZ company for some logical, rational reason that makes business sense, right? So they'll say that this particular company has a piece of software, and when we roll it, when we integrate it with whatever else we're doing, we'll be able to add more value to our offerings to clients, right? That's easy. So in other words, the Excel sheet calculations is perfectly logical, perfectly sensible. But again, the devil is in the detail, right? The people are almost always put in a second box. Of course, things have changed now. There are change management groups from these large companies that go and see how to make sure that people will accept this new change. Once, in fact, we were absorbing an Australian company, right? So you tell me, if the company came to know that Wipro is going to be buying their company, what would the employees be thinking? Any thoughts? What will be the suspicions or apprehensions of the Australian team? Sorry?
First thing will be loss of job.
Yeah, next.
Irrelevant.
Okay. Yeah. Next. Anything else? Brilliant. Well said.
Culture.
So there's a very nice term. Culture eats strategy. Okay. You can be the greatest strategic mind, writing huge books and giving fantastic presentation. If you don't get the culture of the people, all of it goes for a toss. Okay. So that way the management, so the change management initiative is the closest appreciation of culture in these initiatives. So your point is right. The culture was very important, and most of the Australians were really concerned. How are we going to deal with these guys? They have a different time zone, the way the guys operate, the way they talk. Everybody's talking in the team meetings. Everybody's interrupting each other. Because that's how we are culturally. Like, we are able to have multiple parallel conversations. We're just talkative people. Others are not like that. I think this is generally true, right? So that's an example of what I'm trying to talk about. Now, going back to your home or factory or office right now, it's been difficult now. In the sense of teaching people wash your hands, use sanitizers, this, that. I'm sure it took a lot of time. It couldn't have been easy. I think now everyone gets it, right? If we had known all this stuff, maybe we would have done something and found out, will this work? Will people be willing to do all this stuff? I don't think anyone bothered. Okay, we can still say it was a relatively small exercise, but for much larger exercises where change has to be done in a very big way, right? If you take a look at national schemes, right, when the Prime Minister rolls out something or government rolls out something, right, I'm sure that they'll be thinking about all these things. They may not call it a DICE model, but they would be thinking about it. What is the commitment required from me as a sponsor? How do I train the bank employees for new programs? Right? How much of extra effort will the bank staff have to do for the Jan Dhan account? All these things are integrated into this, so that the absorption and implementation of change will be much more sensible and logical. Okay. So what have I covered today? The first thing that I have covered is I've tried to tell you that change on any dimension, whether it's personal or professional, will go through a change curve. The curve can be short or long. Okay. For smaller things, and depending on the ability of the person, I may be able to absorb the change fairly quickly. For larger things, it may take a lot more time, and depending on my own willingness to accept the change, it may take a lot of time, right? Again, going back to the thing of personal, death. For some people, you may have noticed, when somebody in their family passes, they go through a slight period, maybe 1-2 days, maybe a month, then they're fine. Some people, I know one guy, 15 years after his mother's died, he's still in a state of shock. That's an extreme case, but you know what I mean? It can happen. It's all very different. So, and then finally, we talked about the ADKAR model. We talked about the things you need before you roll out, a change management initiative. And ADKAR is simply a way of making sure that the change landscape is well thought about. Then finally, I talked to you about predicting change, which is about this thing about the predicting the likelihood of success of a change initiative using the DICE model. Okay, now I want to just stop with one last thing. Give me a moment. Here we are. This is what I want to talk about. And from this, after this, I will stop. Okay, this is what I was describing about 20 minutes ago. And I was saying, how people accept change. Okay, now here is a quick question for you guys. Okay, so if I asked you guys right now, I can't see any of you. Why don't you just get up and start dancing right now? Right now, will anyone do that? Anyone?
Not in the current avatar.
No, not in the current what? Sorry.
Well,
No.
he doesn't want us to turn on video, so I think that should be all right.
No, I'm saying, guys, start dancing. How many of you are prepared to do that?
None.
Yeah, I'm not.
No, don't say none. Don't say none. I'm sure there'll be one or two guys who don't mind making, doing it. Am I right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there'll always be those guys. Yeah, they're fun guys. We need such people, don't we? Yeah. So that is what the left hand. That's when you say innovation. Well, there's a certain mindset. Okay, the ability to just jump into the pool and see whether I'll swim. They'll try anything. These guys will try absolutely anything. If tomorrow I say that we are thinking of everybody should wear their pants in a different direction, the zip at the back, for example, these guys will do it. Wilder the idea, the most likely these bunch of guys will do it. And I'm sure in whichever group you have, whether it's in your family or at work, you'll always have a bunch of these guys. Now, the point is, I'm taking Kaushik as an example, right? So Kaushik is rolling out an initiative in his organization. What he needs to do is how will this initiative get implemented? The first thing I need to do is find those innovators, the guys who are willing to try everything. So I'm going to introduce to them and say, look, guys, here's a brand new pilot thing. I'm going to try something out. You guys want to help me with it? They'll say, sure. And they'll try the app, or they'll try breaking the product, or whatever you ask them to do, they're going to do it. Okay. Then the next communication is for the early adopters. The early adopters are waiting for somebody else to dance first. Once those guys start dancing, they're prepared to go. Getting me? Yeah, that's the idea of this. So now the communication to them will be, guys, we already have a pilot, initiative going. Would some of you like to join? They say, wow, it's already going. Fine, I'll join in that case. Yeah. Now slowly it's gathering momentum. The next group is a fairly a non-opinionated group, but they're okay with it. They are fine with it as long as a decent sized number of people have started doing it. So you'll tell them that it will now be a formal communication. We are now rolling out this new product or new service. About 15 or 20% of you have already started using the beta versions. The product is now stable. Please, would you like to go ahead and start using it as soon as possible? That is the communication to the early majority guys. Are you seeing the slide, guys? I hope I'm not talking to the wall. Yeah, this is preparing for change. Then we have another group of guys. Now the communication has to become a little stricter, and you have to say that guys, the time is running out. We have 1 month more. Please work fast, because after at the end of this month, the old product will be turned off, and all of you will depend on this. So everybody will start scrambling and start doing this. This is the late majority. The final guys will be even the 11th hour. They haven't done what is required. In that case, for them, the communication has to change and has to be very directive. And you tell them, if you have 24 hours. If you don't do it in 24 hours, you lose all your data, or all the stuff you're doing is gone. Okay, I hope this is making sense, right? So this is how you will communicate. Whereas if the idea is you just have one standard vanilla communication for everyone, it will be a disaster. People don't absorb it like that. So this is being respectful of people's energy level, receptivity and acceptance of change, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I wanted to end with this, and I don't know if I've covered too much or.
Yeah, there was an internet problem. The power went off, so
okay.
The wire.
Sorry.
So this last statement, two statements: the late majority and the laggers. What's the status of them?
Yeah. So what I was saying was, remember, we are gradually rolling out something, right? We are starting with the fun guys, the guys who are prepared to do anything. Then the next level of guys who are prepared to go ahead with, as long as somebody else has already done it in the past. Third is, we have told everybody that, guys, a new product or service is being rolled out, we already have 20% of the people who are there. Please go ahead and start doing it. So people with some initiative will start doing it now. Now, there's only 1 month left or a short period left. You may have to be a bit more directive in your communication. Yeah, it doesn't have to be, guys, please, would you consider, you have to say, the language is to change. It has to be very directive. You have to say, you have 1 month more, people are encouraged to please sign up for this program or shift their data or whatever it is concerned. You have time, please reach out to the help desk. We'll help you right away because time is running out. Now the late majority is getting off the backsides, right? The laggards are those who are waiting for the last minute and will probably not do it even then. They'll always have some reason why they can't do it. So for them, you have to say 90% of the organization has shifted. You have 24 hours now to make the change and shift your data or do whatever is required. After that, we're turning off the old system, right? Because we've had a good 2 months of time to roll out this initiative. 90% of the people are happy. So, you're absolutely entitled to be a bit more strict. Now, did that make sense, what I just said? Yeah?
Yeah, I think it makes very much sense because I think this is what has been followed in big corporate.
Yeah, well, it should be. I mean, again, this is what you hope. I don't think it's always the case because, frankly, the number of people who understand change management is actually not that much. On the one hand, it's intuitive, right? On the one hand, you understand. I mean, I'm saying it like this. I mean, anyone can understand. It's not really a big deal. But the reality is different. Typically, the deadlines are like within one week, within 2 weeks. And the boss guy, the gorilla, he'll say, guys must do it immediately, etc. It doesn't work like that. So this is just putting some patience into the whole initiative to make sure people absorb change in the way they prefer, in the time they wish, but not endlessly, right? So again, change management is a sophisticated subject requiring a lot of personality traits also. One of the important traits of a change manager is the ability to listen. Yeah, you have to know how to listen very, very well. And not everybody has listening skills. Even that people think we do. We don't. Most of us don't have it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. So I think with that, I'd like to stop it. I think I'm probably have reached the end of my presentation. Am I right, guys, time-wise? I think we started at 11:10. Yeah?
Yeah, I think we'll, I was just asking if anybody had like one last question.
We can have many
If
questions.
not, oh, sorry.
Hi,
I think one of my dogs had a question, but
I'm sure it'll be a very good one.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, go on, Brunda, go on.
No, that's fine, Om. You can finish. Then I think I'll pitch it later.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay,
please.
thanks. Hey, sorry. I mean, with what little I attended, it was very interesting, especially the DICE model is something new for me.
Okay, good.
Typically, the question is, emotions always play a huge role. In your experience, has there been any strategy or any work around that? And how can somebody manage that quickly and rationalize with it so that you move out with change? Because the delay, you ultimately move, but the time gap can cost you dearly and cost others around you dearly. Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I do have a couple of thoughts. So first of all, as I mentioned to you towards the end of my presentation, I said listening skills is critically important. Okay, I'll tell you the reason why. It's not simply because we're trying to be a nice guy. Okay, now one of my common complaints with MBA programs has been that they don't teach psychology as a subject. Okay, they don't teach, but everyone's talking about leadership. We are the greatest, we are the best, etc. But nobody actually teaches people that. In fact, we spend a lot of training on sending people for listening skills programs. And you could have done it when you were doing your business school or whatever else you were doing, right? But you didn't do it. Now, the reason why you have to listen, you have to have these listening skills is because what these people are saying and the reason why they're saying can be something completely different. Okay, they oftentimes the reason why this, for example, at the Saudi Arabia thing, right? Yes, people were resisting. They were saying, oh, I'm afraid I can't learn this tool, and I can't do this. How will I learn? It sounds very sad, and Then later on, as we started digging, we realized that this particular group, which was a warehouse group, okay, was actually afraid that their source of illegal income would be affected. Okay, so it's one thing to listen, it's one thing to empathize and be respectful of people's ability to change. But sometimes when people resist, there could be a genuine reason, like maybe lack of training or lack of time, or maybe they're going through a personal crisis, they don't have time. Could be, but they could be other good reasons, which is their own little thing that they're doing on the side. I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm just telling you that. We don't often have the luxury of pampering everyone at the same time, and sometimes there could be back-end activity. Did I follow on the question properly? Did I answer it in some way?
Yeah, I think in some ways, yes. So thank you for that. I will probably reach out to you offline. So I'll let
Please do,
Brinda
please
go
do,
with it.
please do,
Okay,
please do, please do. Yeah. Somebody else? You have my number, right, guys? So
Yeah.
please take it. Take my number. I'll repeat it in case someone doesn't have it, or maybe Tilotama or Om Prakash, someone could, share. Please continue. Any questions?
Yeah, hi Vasudev, this is Brinda here,
Yes.
and thank you for the session.
Sure.
So I had a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
So one is, the first one is how do you think age plays a role, when it comes to resistance? Any organization for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Probably based on your experience, is it that okay, the youngsters, are more ready to this change, or the seniors are, less ready for a change? Do you think you have faced something like that in your experience?
See, the argument is sounds very compelling. Okay, let's accept that argument for a minute. Okay, we'll say young guys are full of excitement and they'll absorb change. Okay, actually, it's generally true. They will accept pretty much anything. Okay, fine, but it may not necessarily be true for the older people. It's all a matter of how you couch it. On the one hand, as we grow older and older, the breaks that are coming our way is because of experience. When we encounter a particular situation, we have very sophisticated reasons, an experience which says why it cannot be done. Because remember, we had tried this out 3 years ago and it didn't work. So therefore, I'm sure this time also it won't work. So that's a bit of a problem. I kind of understand that. But it depends again on the nature of your communication. So, for example, in my own experience, sending senior people for training programs was always a disaster. Okay. What is senior? Now depends. Everyone is senior these days. Very senior, extremely senior, and unbelievably senior. So let's use a 45. Let's say 42 or 43. We are not willing to show up for training. Okay, because it's a social thing. All right, we may feel that we are just too senior to be seen in a classroom, and we'll have 100 reasons why our business work will be affected. I can't go for 2 days away for training. The entire world will collapse without my unbelievable, insights. It can be. So how did we handle this? So we found that if we say, we want to send you for Six Sigma training, or we want to send you for ITIL training, all the stuff, nobody showed up. So we had to change the nature of communication. So how would you do it? It's a challenge to you. How will I make a senior guy go for training? Who asked the question? Was it who was it? Brinda? Was it you?
Yes.
Yeah. How would you do it? So of course I have an answer. It's not that I'm palming off the question. But if the challenge to you was how do you make a bunch of senior guys attend training? How would you do it? I'll give you the answer in a minute, but you go ahead. Try something.
I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe probably I would take each individual and then make them understand, because probably
And that's great. That's great. But you don't call it training. It's the first point I want to make it.
Yeah,
Okay.
sort of tell them that they are doing it for the good of the organization, or you need their help, or make
It's
it.
called you call it leadership development program. Okay. You call it leadership development program. Now, wow, I'm leader. I've been, they've identified me as a fast on the fast track, and this kind of stuff is going to prepare me. You follow the same thing is happening. They are learning new skills, new things, but it's not under training. You're calling it different. So they will accept it. It's just a matter of how you put it across. And let's also remember, these senior guys, it's not that they're resistant to change, but they want a lot of respect to be given to them about the so-called experience in the past. So if you're a young person, you must develop the patience to listen to their war stories. Like, for example, if you talk to your grandfathers or aged people, they always keep talking about the past. When I was a senior guy, my boss recognized me and I was a gold medalist from this department, and Mr. So-and-so said I was an incredible person. So they like to keep on talking about their past glory. So you have to give them some space to do that. And if you do that, if you listen well and say the right kind of things, those guys will also absorb change. In fact, as I mentioned to you, if you look at this preparing for change, the innovators part, right? Another parallel theory is the people who will resist, like these elder people, right? Don't tell them. In fact, tell them, I need your help. I think somebody mentioned that. Tell them, we need your help and experience to roll it out. So actually, they're also being, they're also changing in the process, but now we're making them feel that they have greater control, okay, of this, and that their experience is being rewarded. So this is my kind of answer to your question. But in overall, the generalizations is not true, right? So whether that only the young people are open to change. Well, they're open to change because changing from what? They don't have much to change from. The older people have a lot to change from, and so initially they may be seen as resisting, but it's not necessary. You can actually twist it around, and you may find the older people are quite good at accepting change also. It's up to you. Okay, anything else? Any other questions?
No, do we have time for another question, Tilu?
Uh,
Or if there is anybody else, then I will drop out. That's fine. But if there is
I had a question. Sorry, if Brinda's finished.
Go ahead.
It is the same connecting question of ohms. I think that the answer was not fully satisfied.
Which
It's
one?
again connecting to ohms question. What Om had asked. See, any change, it is all emotion born, right? So
Yes, it is.
if we lose a job, then we are more worried. You have that financial security, but still you are worried about the social, the circle where we are actually the Indian culture.
Right.
If you lose a job in US, it's okay. Like you can accept it. People like, but in India, it is not, because I had my friend who lost his job.
Right.
His wife is working in a good company, and he is having well off. The rental income also was good, but still he was worried about more the the society, right, than the security of finance thing. So how could he take this? In fact, it has not happened to me. I hope it should not happen, but acceptance of this will be really difficult for us and the Indians. So
you're asking questions which are very difficult to answer, because this is a cultural orientation, right? It is very difficult. Now, what could happen, and I have seen this, but again, I've seen it only in the US, not even here, right? When that example I was telling you about people who are laid off, it's not that the people who are left behind were emotional less or they were robots. Not at all. We also felt very bad, right? We were shaken, and so were those guys. Now, for those guys, what you can do to reduce the impact, what they did was, there are companies that help you to, for example, prepare your resume. They help you with your job search. Those are the other kinds of logistical elements, and they also provide counseling services to deal with this kind of a loss. So you cannot hide from these things, but you can minimize the impact. Now, do companies do that here in India? Maybe very few. I don't think people fully appreciate this business of counseling and mental counseling and so on. It may be increasing in some other high-flown companies, but not very much. So I don't think there's one great way to handle this the impact of the social equity, which is what this is, right? How people perceive us without our jobs. We will be depressed and affected by that. So we can only minimize the impact. We can't remove it. Is my humble opinion.
Vasudev, I just want to add there a little bit to the question. I don't know who asked. Anyway, I think the current situation today is, forcing Indians also to think that way. Because it's being stigmatized is not going to help, because the entire bunch, at the entire range of age group is getting affected by this current situation.
That's correct.
So I think the acceptability will, as you put as the presentation itself, the topic, the preparation for the change. I think people will start accepting in a more openness.
Yeah. So great point, Kaushik. So let me just end this over here. I am part of, obviously, just like all of us, we are part of many WhatsApp groups, right? One particular group is leadership trainers. Okay, and leadership trainers also very affected. It's not that they are not affected, right? They were previously high flyers. They were sitting in the business lounges at the airports, etc. Now they're sitting at home, not doing anything. So you can see the tone. Previously the guys who were very, very, upbeat and we're discussing strategy, because everyone's a strategist, right? Now they reduced bare bones to saying, I'm not getting any purchase order and people are not responding to my calls, etc., etc. So now all of a sudden it is in a new norm, as they say, is this kind of situation where you have lost jobs or the economic condition has become very bad, has actually suddenly become acceptable. People are not, I'm not saying acceptable in a good way. I'm saying it's that everybody seems to know a lot of people who is in this boat. So therefore it is not a stigma anymore. If you were standing out, it's a different matter. But now you are pretty much part of almost 40% of the workforce in some way. I don't think, somehow the change has happened without any major initiative from any one of us. Okay. Anything else? And, the Tilotama room, if you could please share my email ID and my number with the group here. I would love to get in touch with you guys, and we can chat about whatever it is. So maybe some things were not too clear because I speak very fast, and that's a problem I have. Maybe something went OHT.
No, this was great and very interesting. I have shared your number. I don't know if I have your email ID, so I think maybe
I'll give it to you.
Sure.
Thank you, Vasudev. Karthik here. I joined midway, and it was a very nice session.
Okay, thank you.
And I was just reflecting on the change management that I have seen over the years when companies are bought over. And the mind shift, you mentioned about the cultural shift.
Yeah.
Someone talked about cultural shift.
Yes.
And also, in the current pandemic, the way society, at a very high level, how, these politicians, I was thinking whether, these politicians also think of the change management, because these days it is very important, whether lockdown or any other measures that they are taking. So how people perceive, and you cannot please all. So you covered a lot of points. Covered a lot of points. Very nice. Thanks to Om and KV ISC Alumni Association.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to everyone, including my good
Thanks a lot,
friends.
Vasudev. It was
Sure.
great.
Thanks, Vasu.
Nice
Thanks.
attending
And
this.
thanks, Som, for reaching out to
appreciate it.
Vasu and on our behalf. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Bye bye. Stay
Take care.
safe. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Tilu, for
Thank
hosting.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.